Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Carrie Roldan Show, where we spend 30 minutes or so having conversations that matter to the entrepreneur's body, mind, and business. I'm your host, Carrie Roldan, and I'm a wife, a mother, a runner, a best-selling author, a personal growth junkie, and your total business BFF. I'm honored to be your teammate and intuitive guide on this entrepreneurial journey. On this show, my phone's ringing right now. On this show, we cover topics from marketing and websites to consciousness and hormones and everything in between. And today, I am super stoked to be chatting with someone who I met about a year ago and instantly felt a connection with. So Briana Cavanaugh is the Financial Bliss Mentor. Don't just savor those words for a minute. Financial bliss. Doesn't that sound amazing? She loves helping people really get money and finance and feel powerful about making money on purpose. She helps people understand money, what it is and what it isn't, and how they can transform their relationships relationship with money from being in debt, anxious, and overwhelmed to one of ease, confidence, and bliss. Her money journey has been about going from being a tech professional to a welfare mom to a six-figure entrepreneur. She's had an accounting practice since 2006 and is certified in QuickBooks Online, Profit First, and Profit First at the highest levels. She helps holistic practitioners, artists, and creative types end the financial feast or famine cycle so they can focus on bringing their passions to the world. I'm so excited to talk to you today, Briana. So let me put your beautiful face on screen for those of you who are watching us live. There you go. Hello, Briana. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Carrie. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
And I realize I pronounced your name two different ways. Do you like to be called Briana or Briana?
Briana.
Briana. All right.
Thanks for asking.
Briana, you're welcome. I'm terrible with names. I have a niece who is a Briana. So you know how once you know someone,
That's
anyway,
right. Mm-hmm.
You are Briana and shall be pronounced that way. All right. So Briana, I'm super interested in your story. I was reading your bio. We met about a year ago at an event.
That's right.
I fell in love with you. We instantly had a connection. I think we were eating lunch or something. And I'm like, I'm going to hug you.
Yeah, that's my life. It was great. Yeah.
But
you were sitting with some amazing people and we had this like incredible conversation about all sorts of things. It was really fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's how we roll, right? Like I'm not a small talker.
Yeah. Me either.
So I didn't know your story. So, I've been following you for about a year and watching you on Facebook and getting your emails, but I did not know that you were, you went from really high to really low to financial bliss. So can you give us a little bit of that story?
Yeah. So the reason that you don't know is because I, for a long time, just didn't talk about it. It's, and maybe we'll get into this in terms of conversations that really matter. But, I had a lot of shame about having worked, like I was a technical writer and, I wasn't the highest paid person in tech for sure. But, I worked in a field where people generally don't worry about money very much. Right. And about the same time that I became a solo parent, we lost my son's father to heroin addiction, which was very intense sort of journey. Like, this is the other reason I don't talk about it is sometimes it's real intense for people. It's like, oh, all of these things happen. So we lost my son's father. And then I lost my job and had to figure it out. Right. And in the process of figuring it out, I was like, okay, well, I'll apply to all these jobs and do all these things. And in the tech bus, this was in 2002, there just weren't any jobs that I could get. It wasn't like, and there were parts where I took it very personally. Anyway, all this stuff. But what ended up happening is, so I spend down my unemployment, right? That's the first thing. I'm like, okay, so I have unemployment. I'm just going to go for it. I spend down my savings and I'm like super nervous about that. Then I spend down my 401k because like, if there's no other money, that's where you're headed. And then there's nothing. Right. And one morning I like get up and I'm like, okay, there's like not enough to feed us today. Right. Like I have a small child and I don't know how I'm going to feed him. And it was this like just terror, like just absolute terror of like, what am I going to do? And there was a moment where it was like, okay, well, we're going to a food bank and never again. Right. But it came from this place of just absolute terror of I didn't want to reach out for help. I didn't know what to do. It was never, it was never my plan to be a welfare mom. I was totally flabbergasted by just the entire situation because I'd done all the right things, right? I'd worked really hard. I had a great job, right? Like I had a kid, I had a partner. I was doing the whole thing, like just like they tell you you're supposed to do, right? And it didn't work, right? And then you're like, well, what do I do? There's no roadmap here. There's no, nobody's standing behind me being like, oh, go to this place, do this, that, and so suddenly I'm basically all by myself. I don't have any money. I don't have any resources. What am I supposed to do? And it was awful, right? Because nobody trains you for these moments of just complete and utter terror.
Briana, I have to just stop you for 1 second to tell you that I have goosebumps from head to toe right now. So that just means that what we're talking about is so relevant and so important to so many people who are watching. And you're talking about something that, like you said, in the entrepreneur space, we like to gloss over this part of our story and then say, look at how successful I am now. You can be too.
That's right.
Oh my goodness, what you just said about I did everything right.
That's right.
And I did everything. Yeah. So keep going, but wow, you've got me.
Thanks. It's an intense story for me to tell because, it brings up, going back in the place, it still brings up things where, thinking about my son who was 5 at the time, and it was really terrifying. And we have come a long way, right? And we did make something out of it. And my son and I both have become, much more successful as a result. There's a lot of resilience or a lot of lessons learned. But one of the big things I learned is you have to have the money conversation. Somebody has to talk to you about money. You have to be able to have these conversations. So what I did was I, went to the food bank, I got on welfare, and I did another round of bust my ass to figure it out. So I went back to school for a couple of years because I thought maybe I need more education. And it took years to solve this. So one of the things that I did was I started working for an advocacy organization that helped welfare moms get off welfare, because I was determined is sort of an understatement for where I was. I was like, this is not a real thing in my life. This cannot be happening. And so I hooked up with an advocacy organization. I was like, tell me everything. How does this work? Why is this happening? What do we do about it? I worked with a woman who did a lot of work around domestic violence and welfare. And anyway, there's a lot of information, but I started doing policy work around it. I started doing advocacy work around it. I started studying the California state budget and the federal budget. And I went and spoke. Here's the thing you never want to do is be an expert on poverty. So I went and spoke as an expert on poverty in front of the California Senate and Assembly, both around these different bills that we were working on to try to pass to help alleviate poverty and support welfare parents in, getting out of poverty. And I learned a lot of things, right? I learned a lot of things. I got some connections. And what I realized is in that deep dive into learning about money, it gave me a whole lot of skills, right? I started I spent a lot of time looking at budgets, which I'd never looked at anybody's budget before, right? Most of the entrepreneurs I've ever met are like, well, I had this idea about what a budget is, but they just don't, they just don't have it. Nobody really talks to you about what a budget is and how it works and why you're doing it and all this stuff. So I got to study that and watch other people talk about these budgets, right? Have all of this information come together. And then one day, I also signed up for every temp agency I was like, I'm not doing this. Sure. I need money. So, and started taking every available possible job. And one day they called me and they said, hey, we have an accounting job for you. And I was like, I think you've called the wrong person. This is not a real thing. And it turns out it was doing their 5-year multi-site projected budget. And I was like, this is not my job. So anyway, I went in there. My line to them was basically, I'll show you I can't do this. I just was like, all right, fine. I need the money. I'll show up. I'll give it a shot. I'll break it. Yeah. You'll see. We'll get something else going on. And I'll be forever grateful for the executive director of that nonprofit who was like, clearly you actually can do this. This is, formulas and moving things around. And she just like took me under her wing and was like, I'll teach you how to do that. And I was incredibly grateful. And I learned everything as fast as I could. And it turned out that I could do that. And then that was the piece that started putting these things together, that I'd been looking at all of these skills and how this all worked. And it didn't give me a background in accounting exactly, but it gave me an opening to be able to take a deep dive into studying that. So then I took a bunch of classes, and my work came out of my own desire to change things. And then as this, of course, progressed, people started being like, you know about this stuff? And I was like, who are you talking to? But it sort of came out of, I sometimes talk about like falling into ever more greatness, like just continue to sort of fall forward into more things where people are like, hey, help me with this thing. And just part of my journey is just being willingness, just having the like open heart and willingness to like, okay, I'll try that, which is, I think, one of the keys to being able to create massive change in your life, is just to be able to be willing and open to create what you want in the world.
Well, that's what I love about your story, right? Is like, I've heard several moments in your story where you could have become a victim, right? Where you could have, like there were plenty of moments in your story where you just could have sat down and said, I'm a victim. Life, why did you do this to me? Right. Didn't choose that route over and over again. You chose, okay, well, I'll learn about this. Well, you just took the next open door, which eventually led you to the path that, unbeknownst to you, you were truly meant to go.
Right.
So,
I call it, there was a calling on my life, right? That like the universe, or however you want to talk about that, was like, no, right? Just like, this is not the right path, and just closed some doors. And then I had to figure it out. And these days I try to listen a little earlier to the messages from the universe. That's definitely one of my lessons. But just, that willingness to be like, okay, we're going to figure this out. We've figured all the other things out. We're going to figure it out.
Which, can I just say this, well, maybe this has to do with what you're about to talk about, but I just think that's such an important quality to have in a human being, is to know it's going to work out. We can figure this out, right? Like, I've got this one way or another. I'll figure this out, as opposed to doom and gloom and all the other things. Okay. So this show is about conversations that matter to entrepreneurs, body, mind, and business. And I know you well enough to know that you are, I hesitate to use the word just, but you are more than just an accountant or a financial expert, or like, you've got this whole thing around bliss your money, which is really different than most people talking to entrepreneurs about their finances. So what's the conversation we should be having around that?
That's a great question. So do you know Brene Brown's work?
Yes.
She says we can't selectively numb emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I heard that years ago, this like giant light bulb went off for me. And I was like, oh, right. The reason that people are unhappy with their money situation is that most people I've ever met are in some amount of avoidance, especially entrepreneurs, right? They're just like, I don't want to look at it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't know how to talk to you about my money. I'm afraid to say my prices. I'll just write it down. We don't have to talk about that right now. Like, people are like,
can I just raise my hand like really for so many?
Right. Like, this is totally common. Like, even if you just sit down to have dinner with people, right? And nobody says, well, this is how we're going to split the check up front. Like, it's super basic, right? You share meals with people all the time, and nobody says, okay, this is what this is what I'm up for. We're going to split it 4 ways, or we're each going to pay for our own, or we just don't have the money conversation. So as a result, we are holding a lot of tension about that, right? We are basically squishing it all down. And because we're not willing to feel the upset, the embarrassment, the overwhelm, the anger, the sadness, we don't feel the joy, right? Because we're squishing it.
Yes.
So when the money comes in, right? So I see this all the time. When a big client comes in, then you spend down all the money right away because you can't hold it. right? You can't hold the joy.
So are you equating, I love where you're going with this, because I truly believe that if you can't, that's something I've actually worked on my whole life, is I recognized I was an even keel kind of person, which was fine, right? But I had no low lows and no high highs. Like, in order to avoid the low lows, I kept myself very guarded, which meant that I couldn't ever get to the highs that I wanted. And it was because I wasn't willing to feel the lows.
That's right. And not just that you want, right? This is the thing that people want. They want to be happy, but they're afraid to claim it, right?
Well, but the question I meant to ask you was, are you equating money with joy?
No, I don't. That's not, I mean, it certainly can be. But what I'm saying is actually that money can be joyful. And I'm saying that when we're not willing to have the conversation, we can't actually have what we really want. And that's where we're going with it, is that when we're shut down and we're like, no, I'm not going to feel that about this, we don't feel anything, right? Or we feel this very narrow range. So the joy that entrepreneurs are looking for in their ability to have big impact, in their ability to actually have the big clients and the big money and the things that they want, you have to be able to feel all of it, which is where this is going, is actually you have to transform your relationship with money shame, right? And I think that's the biggest, hardest conversation, right?
Those people watching on video just saw my aha, and I don't know if you can see my goosebumps. Yes. If you're listening, I'm telling you about it now. Holy crap, that was a big one for me. So it's not just because I've heard about the relationship with money all the time. Transform your relationship with money. I've done all sorts of work around that. Ooh, but transform your relationship with money shame, that hit me on another level. Okay, preach. Keep going. I'm excited.
Yeah, so shame is a thing that we actually do know how to heal. A lot of people won't touch it because it's big, right? It's big emotions. But for those of us who have, I'm a person who has big emotions, right? And so I had to learn how to sit with big emotions and get training for myself about how to sit with big emotions and how to sit with people who have big emotions, right? And so then it leads down this path of oh, this is shame. This is embarrassment. This is humiliation. This is overwhelm, right? And these are things that we don't want to talk about. But if you don't have those conversations where you open the door to talking about things that you're resistant to, that are painful, upsetting, you can't have more. You can't have more, right? You can't have more money. And if you do get more money, you won't hold it. You won't keep it, right? And that is, and that's one of the secrets to being able to change your actual financial position, is you have to be able to hold more money. When clients come to me, there's a couple things they really want. They want to have more savings. They want to have retirement. They want to be able to do some of those bigger purchases, get a home, stuff like that. But if you don't, but in order to do these things, you have to be able to hold money, not just spend money, right?
Right. So when I titled this show, I titled it Ending the Cycle of Feast and Famine, or something around that, with regard to finances. And so when you're talking about holding the money, right, that's being able to end the cycle, is
that's right.
I'm hearing that, right? Being a container to just allow yourself to, just like you can sit with a big emotion, you can sit with a big old pile of cash and breathe with it.
That's right. So the financial feast or famine cycle is, right, that you get up and you're inspired one day, right? You're like, I'm going to do it. Maybe it's January 1st-ish. Maybe you've gone to a seminar, you're like, all right, I'm on it. And for a while, you go, 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 right? And money starts to accumulate. And at some point you hit some kind of peak, right? You're outside of your range, outside of your comfort zone. And your biology will snap you back to some degree. If you don't have the skills to sit with it and hold it, you'll get snapped back, right? And so then you find yourself hanging out on the couch, right?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm just saying, maybe we ever have met somewhere that's like that. Maybe it's not us, but maybe. So you find yourself eating Fritos and watching daytime TV, right? Or just Netflix, now that, whatever, right? So you're exhausted. And the money drops off. And so the next time you get a big pile of cash, you have to fill that hole. So you're not able to hold it because your money's going like this and like this and like this and like this and like this. And so also your emotions are like all over the place, and everything is all over the place. Then your relationships end up somewhat all over the place. And all of these things are connected to your ability to actually, what it comes down to is your ability to hold yourself. Right.
Okay. I'm dying to share two personal stories with you because I've had, I think I've been in business for like 7 years. I was just telling a friend, but I wasn't making what I consider any real money until the past couple of years.
Congratulations.
Why, thank you. And what happened for me, that when I started my business, I did what a lot of entrepreneurs do, right? Which is overinvest. I invested from a place of fear and lack, and also determination. Like there was something going on. I believe that this is changing in the way that it has to change, in the way that people are selling. People are no longer responding quite the same way to the sales tactics that used to work. But right. Back when I started my business, the sales tactics that worked really well were to say something like, if you really believe in yourself, you'll invest. And I was like, I do believe in myself. I can do it. Anyways, I invested for me, which was a large amount of money. I invested about $10,000 into getting my business off the ground. I don't want to say put all my eggs in one basket, but I truly believed I was going to do this first product launch and it was going to be amazing. And hundreds of people were going to buy my product because I was in the right energy and yada, yada, except that I had done all of this on credit cards without telling my husband.
Oh,
right? Can you imagine the energy behind that? Like, I know people who follow me are like, Carrie, you did that? But
we all have our mistakes, right? Like we've all done things.
Yeah. Yes. And I felt like I justified it to myself because I was like, I believe in myself. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this and it will show him, right? Because he was sort of like, what is this that you're doing that you're trying to, like, he just didn't get it. And I was like, I'll show him the money and that will, and lots of people were selling stuff to me that way, like buy my product and then you'll be able to, anyways. That's right. Obviously that my first product launch didn't go that way. I didn't make back the $10,000. Like,
right.
Yeah. Oh yes. If I knew then what I know now.
That's right.
But anyways, I'm telling you that because it then took a long time to dig out of the hole. And I did sort of what you were doing. Like, okay, well now I'm just going to take odd jobs. Like I'm going to do anything because, and I did get out of debt, people. Like it's all good. But the next level in my business happened when I made a conscious commitment to actually work less. And I recognized that for me, my daily run is a huge self-care practice. And I actually don't feel like myself if I don't get to run at least 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. And I started running more. And it didn't make any sense from a logical, it's like I should be spending all my time trying to figure out how to make $1 bajillion. But I was like, I'm not going to. I need to do this. And I started running more. And it was like all of a sudden money appeared. That's so right. You were saying something that prompted me to want to say that. I can't remember now because I got all caught up in my own stuff. But maybe you can.
Yeah. That's a question of alignment.
Yeah.
Right. So we could get very into this conversation of how does money and energy, the energy of money work? But one of the issues here is alignment. Are you aligning your money with your values, your actions with your values, right? And if one of the things that you value is yourself and your self-care, then you have to figure out how to prioritize that, and it has to make the list, right? And it has to make the list regularly enough to have an impact. So this is a thing for me, right? Part of why I ended up starting my own business instead of getting an accounting job is that I got really sick, right? And I ended up in the hospital, and that's a whole other piece of my story for another day. But one of the issues was that I started a business where I first was only working 6 hours a week because that's all I could do, right? So these have to be, if you're going to work 6 hours a week, you're going to have to figure out how to have some pretty leveraged activities. This is, of course, not what I did in the beginning. But, when you look at, how many hours you work, and for those of us who, like, I have a team, right? I have a staff of people who works for me. I cannot spend all of my time, doing super basic admin work. I cannot spend all of my time running myself into the ground, right? I have to be open and available to hold myself, the money, the team, my clients, right? All of these things. So we have to figure out how to create alignment for ourselves. So one of the deep pieces of money is, what are your values and how are you using your values in alignment with your money? This is a really, really critical piece. And lots of people actually talk about this. I have a couple of exercises that I do with people that really okay, so if you want this, if you really want to heal your relationship with money, there's some things that you need to do. And one of them is get really clear about what your alignment is.
Yeah, so it's funny that you say that, because I've talked about money comes up in the conversations with my clients, but I don't profess to do the kind of work that you do around money. But I always talk about how people are you actually living your priorities? Right. Which has to do with your values, right?
That's right.
You know what your values are, and ideally you're prioritizing your life around those values. And
that's right.
Over and over again, honestly, the fastest way to see if you're living your priorities is look at where you're spending your money. Because
you have two budgets, your time budget and your money budget, right? That's it. If you want to know whether you're really living on purpose, right? You're really living your values. Look at where you've been spending your time and your money for the last month, the last 2 months. And I can tell you give me your values and your time and your money, I can tell you whether it's working for you or not. I don't have to talk to you.
Well, this is super important. So everyone who's watching, let's do that. So last 2 months, look at where we spent our time and our money. This is assuming we already know our values. So if you don't know your values, real quick, if you don't know what your values are, think about what you think you value. Start there. What it is that I'm having trouble speaking right now. What is it that I think I value, right? And for many of us entrepreneurs, the reason we got into business for ourselves, right, is we value our time freedom. We probably have some sort of a financial freedom value as well, but
and our families often really high on the list. So making a big impact or legacy, right? That's a big thing for entrepreneurs. Some version of pleasure or joy or happiness, right? Your family, financial freedom. So if you look at, if you take your list, so I'm going to give you a key to how to do this. You take your top 5 values, and then you look at all the things, print out your calendar, and then next to them, just see if any of those things match up with your values, right? And put them right next to them. And if it doesn't, that gives you a lot of information, right? That means that there's some ways that you're out of alignment. There's some things that you need to deal with. And that's a lot of what I work with people on, is there are all these outstanding things, there are completions that need to happen there, in order for you to get right with your money. And for me, the really basics of that is you got to track it, right? You can't analyze it if you're not tracking it. And then from there, we can have other bigger conversations once we can see what's really going on inside. But a lot of the conversation is people are just I
Oh my goodness, Briana. I feel like I could talk to you about this forever, probably because it's been a huge issue in my life. And there's a whole nother thing that happens, you guys, with your money when you combine, right? When you get married and you combine your life and yourself with somebody else, and your money issues with somebody else and their money issues too. And I want to make sure that we give people a place to find you. And
that's great. So we are actually launching a free challenge right now called the Free Your Cash Flow Challenge. And if you go to blissyourmoney.com, right on the front page there, you can sign up for, right now it says the 77 money leaks. And if you sign up for that, you'll get the challenge too. Everything right now leads to the challenge. So no matter where you find me on the internet, you can find it. But blissyourmoney.com. So bliss, BLISS, blissyourmoney.com. You can also go to on Facebook. We're facebook.com/financial bliss. Those are the 2 big places to find us. And you can always just reach out at either of those places, and I'm happy to talk to you. My staff will get right back to you.
Okay, I just put it up on the screen. So for those people who are watching us on Facebook, Facebook Live.
Money, MONEY.
Oh, you mean you have to spell stuff right?
Yeah, damn it, internet.
It's not really the internet as much as it is me and my typing. Bliss. And look, I'm saying it out loud for those of you who are listening. YOURMONEY.com. All right, there we go. Now we've got it, hopefully. Oh my goodness. I don't know how many times. That was like a running joke for me in my business was like, all right, you guys, I just sent you an email. First one to find the typo gets a prize. Okay, Briana, there's so much I could talk to you about, but I just love sitting in your energy. I know you guys who are watching, especially those of you who are fans of the show, you guys already love Briana. Like you've already fallen in love with her story and her energy and her perspective, right? Like that's what I am so enjoying about this conversation, Briana, is the perspective around money. Because honestly, like this is what I've been learning with regard to my husband and I is he's the numbers guy. Like he's an engineer by trade. The man loves a spreadsheet like nobody's business. And I'm the opposite of that. Like I can barely do basic math and spreadsheets. I have a huge aversion to anything like graph or spreadsheet related. However, mama needs her budget. Like I cannot breathe without, I don't know, like I'm great with rules and and I need a budget like nobody's business. And my husband, who is the spreadsheet effing king, like has this huge aversion to a budget because for him, a budget means restriction, right?
That's right.
It means
that's right.
Yeah.
So this is, there's so many things I want to say. First, I want to say something about in relationship. So I just want, for those of you who are like in relationship, I want you to think about, could it possibly be that you have a conversation instead of it being so hard? So I am about to move in with my sweetheart. We've been together for a year. It's amazing. And I'm very, very happy. And thank you. It's so good. And very early on, one of the early conversations, I said, we started talking about money and who's paying for what and how is it going and how does money feel for you, and just having the conversation so that when there was a thing, when we were like, okay, we're going to go on vacation together, we went to Mexico, it was badass. We could have the conversation because we'd already had a foundation of conversations. Right. So if you're involved with people with money, that means your staff, that means your partner, that means your children. You want to just have open, honest conversations with them. You just say the words, right? And then it'll be challenging at first, but just say all the words and just practice saying all the words. You can even go to your sweetheart or whoever and say, hey, can we have a practice conversation? Like, I'm not ready to have the conversation. It still freaks me out. But like, can we have a practice conversation? And just start that there. And then the other thing is, so the shift around budgets, I'm just going to say this quickly, is can you consider we're just looking for, can you open the possibility that instead of a restrictive budget, that what you're doing is creating a financial plan, right? And that this is your monthly financial plan. This is what we're going to do. And that means that you include all the things that are important, the mani-pedi, right? And getting your hair done and, all of the things that you want. Again, you have to look at them to put them on the budget, but then you can actually say, okay, it's $250 to get my hair done and dyed and pink and all this stuff, right? So that goes into the budget. No surprises, right? $50 or whatever, however much for the oil change, that goes in the budget, right? All of these things go in your plan. And then it's not how much can we like cinch the belt, but how much can we give ourselves space to really have what we want and claim it. Claim it.
Yes. Amen to that. And be able to hold it, right? If you can't, like you're saying, if you can't look at it, or if you don't, now I'm going to preach because I'm a budget junkie.
Do it.
But we learned to talk about it as a spending plan, not even a financial plan, but a spending plan, because does my husband love to spend? And so once we were like, right? Let's make a spending plan, where I'm like a saver. Like I would like to have a savings plan, but sure, I can call it a spending plan if it means we can save more. And that was amazing. That was like once we were able to shift, we had to say the words, which was, people, it took us, we've been married almost 15 years. It took us like 13 to even be able to say the words. And it's because all of us we all come with financial baggage. Like what my husband came with was, he didn't like hearing his parents fight about money. So he just decided our way to not fight about it was we don't speak of it.
Just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
That's right.
And
a lot of people come with that one that just don't talk about it.
Yeah. So I know this doesn't have to do with blissing our money. And I actually really wanted to go a little more into depth on that. So I may just have to have you back another time, Briana.
That sounds great.
Because yeah, you guys, I know this is what we all want, right? We all want to be, and Briana talks about a lot about pleasure. And if you guys follow me, you know, right? We're talking about alignment, right? Which is about following your bliss.
That's right.
Yeah. So
following your bliss.
Yes, but so many of us disassociate, especially us spiritual types, and we disassociate. We don't want to put money in the same conversation with bliss or happiness or joy, right? We don't want to think that we need money for that. And so we do exactly what Briana's talking about.
But also we think that wealthy people are evil or bad or corrupt. And so we don't want to be those people, right? Especially those of us who want to make a big impact and create change in the world. We don't want to see ourselves as making mistakes, being bad, you know, doing any of those things. And so we can't claim financial wealth because we're like, those people are terrible. And so of course the money's not going to come and hang out with us, right? If you kept saying to someone, I think you suck, they wouldn't be like, hey, let's have lunch, right? Like that's not how it works.
Right.
So that's one of the big things to think about is how do you think about wealthy people? How do you think about the people that, you know, you think you want to have money? What are your opinions about people who have money?
That is why I have a friend who's great at helping me with this. Shout out to you, Rachel Archelaus. And I am learning to just fall in love with the Kardashians because they make boatloads, like butt tons of money for, you know, like I felt resentful of them for a long time, like sort of like, oh, I wish I could just make people cameras follow me around and like money would just show up. And I wish I could make money for like people would just pay me to show up somewhere and I could, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, why not? Like, actually, this is pretty awesome. Yeah. I'm going to watch their life.
Yeah.
And that's been a huge shift. So, we could talk forever. And I want to respect everybody's time. Yeah. We are 37 minutes in already. So Briana Cavanaugh, you guys need to find her on blissyourmoney.com. And if yes. And if you're listening to the day of this recording is March 5th, my mom's birthday.
Happy birthday, Mom.
Yeah, happy birthday, Gail Quinn. So if you're listening anywhere near or around March 5th, this is going to lead you into her challenge. So tell us what the name of the challenge is again.
We're doing a free your cash flow challenge.
How good does that sound? I want to free my cash flow.
Yeah, it's a thing that I do for myself every January. And my people finally were like, you have to give it to us. So I'm giving it to you. But no matter when you go to the website, there will be something interesting for you to play with. I like to do these kinds of money games. Like, what is it that we need to look at? So there's always something great on there.
I love it. I love it so much, Briana. I am so enjoying basking in your energy. I hope that you guys who are watching and listening have done the same. Be sure to head on over to blissyourmoney.com to get more amazing stuff from Briana Cavanaugh. So Briana, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
You're welcome. And everybody else, thank you so much for watching and listening to the Carrie Roldan Show. Here is a great big virtual hug from me to you. So everybody spread your arms wide, wrap them around yourself. Give yourself that great big hug. Know that you are awesome and amazing and worthy and deserving of everything you want and desire. And I'll see you next week on the Carrie Roldan Show. Bye for now, guys.
Bye.